You know there's a problem with your crime thriller when the audience isn't even concerned about who the killer is, but how the movie went so wrong. Now, The Snowman's been getting slammed by a lot of people, and I'm not going to defend it and say it's good, because it's not. But after watching it, I thought it was a beautiful looking mess that handled the narrative like a game of telephone, where different student directors came in to handle each scene, but at the end it awkwardly wraps up. Then I read up on the making of this movie. Screw this movie. Now, if you don't want any spoilers, run, because here's the breakdown of what happens within the film. There's a kid who has issues because his mom committed suicide and his dad didn't want him. He grows up to be a serial killer who murders women who have children with biological dads who aren't around, and his calling card ends up being a snowman, which he leaves whenever he goes to kill people, which only happens during snowfalls. 9 years before Fassbender arrives, who's the main detective, there was another detective named Rafto who came really close to catching him. Then he got killed and became a snowman himself. 9 years later, it's Fassbender's turn to try and find him when he shows up again. His partner just so happens to be Rafto's daughter, all grown up, which I don't know how no one in the department knew that was his daughter, considering that he worked in the same place and she has to apply. Either way, she has all of the clues collected since she really has a vendetta against this guy, but Fassbender's a drunk and he just misses all the clues that aren't even really there. He's also trying to raise his ex-wife's son, who doesn't know who his real father is, but he also doesn't get along with his mom's newest boyfriend, who's a hormone specialist, meaning that he's never there. So yeah, they got a crazy little family relationship going on there with the mom who's had 3 boyfriends and none of them seem to be really there. The movie then throws in some storylines with corrupt politics, and there's J.K. Simmons and this plastic surgeon who seem to be trafficking women, and eventually the surgeon dies, and even Fassbender's partner at one point dies, and pretty much the movie, as I will explain it, jumps from one scene to another until you get the sudden and by coincidence reveal that the snowman killer is in fact Matthias, the hormone doctor dating Fassbender's ex, who was also that little kid in the beginning. And of course, since Fassbender just came off of Assassin's Creed, he kills him, Fassbender loses a finger, and everything's fine.
I'll do the fingering.
Now, the movie is based off of a series of books about a detective named Harry Hole, who, yes, his name is Harry Hole, which is supposed to be pronounced differently overseas, and it's even meant to, imply that it's a lower class type of name since the dude's a drunkard, and so it adds to its character. But over here in the States, his name is still Harry Hole. Now, the entire series is supposed to be very good, and the author has another book adaptation named Headhunters, which is very good, so the problem here isn't the source material. It's the fact that they started on book 7. And when you consider the fact that the character, the case, and the entire twist to the snowman revolves around you knowing the background to this dude, randomly adapting this one and rushing it becomes a really big problem. It would be like starting Star Wars on episode 7. That's the first movie you see, and so when Han and Chewie come out, you know that they're major characters, but without previous installments to build up on them, they wouldn't be as impacting. Now, what needs to be broken down is how this movie falls apart, especially when it has such a fantastic cast, and even a director who's made 2 films I would personally consider to be very meticulously made. And while I do think that the director has some blame, I personally give it to the studio. See, this movie had its eyes on Martin Scorsese a couple of years ago, but he was busy with The Wolf of Wall Street and was silent, so since they got tired of waiting for him, they scouted out a new director. Scorsese still stayed on as a producer and even had his editor try to rework it, which, yes, the movie has 2 editors, and not in the good Coen Brothers sense, but the, hey, I'll give you $20 if you can help me write this 10-page paper. How much do you have done? 1. Because even the director admitted that besides being rushed to film within the actual locations, when they got to post-production, turns out they forgot to film a big chunk of what was in the script. Now, some say that they forgot 10% of the movie. Either way, it explains why some scenes are literally just seconds long, and the whole movie feels like it's stitched together worse than Chucky's face. But even with what they reshot, you can see how careless it is with the makeup, the colors, and especially Fassbender's hair, where they don't even try to replicate it in the later scenes. And you see, there are movies like the EMOJI movie that are bad because of their end goal, to whore out a trend that's out there and to bait families with kids with the most generically rushed animation out there. The Snowman took something beloved and carelessly butchered it. And while I think it gives unintentional laughs, like Val Kilmer's role, it ends up becoming really sad the more you look into it. Because Val Kilmer plays that officer in the flashbacks, and this dude looks like Tommy Wiseau tried to fuse himself with Kurt Russell. They have him doing dumb stuff like randomly walking drunk on skydecks, he's taking bubble baths, and ultimately, I kid you not, they dub over all of his lines because it sounded like the man was chewing marshmallows. And it's one of those roles that's so bizarre, it's fascinating to watch. The only problem is, Kilmer himself revealed a while back that he had cancer and that he still had swelling in his tongue, thus why his original dialogue was unusable. But to not recast him because you don't want to discriminate, I guess, due to his condition, is overshadowed by the fact that you've now embarrassed him with a role that's worse than Johnny Depp's cameo in Tusk. So, for those who feel it's still incomplete, I searched up the book, I watched it again, and tried to piece together things for it to make some sort of sense, because the movie itself omits things, and it even adds things to create a different story, so for those who want to know why things are supposed to fit or some motives, here we go. The motive of the killer comes from when he was younger. His mother left him waiting in a car outside in the cold when it was snowing while she was having sex with someone who wasn't his father. And when he catches them, they stop doing their little tango only to see that a snowman outside of their window is observing them. In the movie, they showed it as his father never cared for him and left him, leaving his mother to commit suicide, but it was the idea of a mother conceiving a child out of wedlock, of raising one without a father, that set him off as a serial killer to seek out others who were doing the same exact thing. The fact that Matthias also becomes a hormone specialist allows him to find his victims with more ease, such as the couple in the movie, whose husband was always infertile, yet they had a daughter. Or the twin who had an abortion due to the fact that she had slept with so many guys that she didn't know who the daddy was. But it's Harry Hole's situation that he really dives into, considering Harry's ex's refusal for her son to know who his biological father is. Harry connects the dots when he realizes, again by coincidence, that all of the victims have shared meetings with Matthias, and thus he's able to rescue his family before Matthias can chop them up, and they're able to have a happy ending. But unlike the movie, Catherine, who is his partner, lives in the book since Harry at one point considers her a suspect due to her infatuation for the case, and she ends up in a psychiatric unit, which ends up being good because she survives. But considering that they offed her just so they can have a cool shot of a snowman on top of the car where they find her body, considering how bad the production went, and considering how it's been received, it sucks to say that this series of books that could have made a fantastic franchise is slightly ruined. And it sucks for the author of the book because he at one point was reluctant to adapt it in the first place.
Simply because I knew that from the moment that somebody had been Harry on the big screen, that would be the actor, that would be Harry's face, you know, in people's minds, maybe in my own head.
I know that some are bound to like it, and that's cool. Some won't completely hate it. But the reason I make these explain videos for crappy movies is to warn people from wasting their money. Because it's bogus to distribute something half-made and expect an audience to pay full price.